Welcome, everybody, to week 4 of the Audible. Gup here tonight. A lot to talk about. A lot of great questions in the Slack that we'll get to in just a few minutes. Joined, as always, with my partner, Tambo. Tambo, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Yeah, excited, man. It's a big week ahead, lots of big tournaments and a lot of money on the line. So got to get this right, man. That's what the Audible's for. Get the final details in and then make those lineups.
Yeah, I think major injury news would be, I believe I saw that TY has been officially ruled out. I don't know if that's confirmed,
Yeah, I
but
saw I saw doubtful, but it's extremely doubtful. And what happened was they upped a guy from the roster to get to the 53 man, so or from the practice squad or whatever. So yeah, it doesn't look good for TY for tomorrow. I think he's gonna be out.
um, other than that, I don't know from Wednesday if there's any big. I know the wide receivers and Chargers. It looks like Mike Williams and Benjamin are both going to be out, which would put Inman in play. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've heard any different, but that's one of them.
Yep, that's one. And then Terry McLaurin, obviously, pulled up lame in practice on Thursday with a hamstring, but they still say he's likely to go. But he was a huge cash game staple, I think, for most. And now it feels like everyone wants to find a different way around there, myself included. So it's tough to trust a guy with a hamstring injury, even if he can go. You'd think it would be something more like just a decoy out there.
Yeah, I agree there. I think the other kind of potential issue, which I'm sure we got questions on it, but we'll get to it, is the Gordon. What's
Yeah.
Gordon's role going to be tomorrow? Let me get my ownership's been posted. Everything was posted a little earlier. You're probably not seeing my video right now. So about 2 hours ago, for the first time in 4 years, I had allergic reaction to something I ate. I don't know what it was necessarily because obviously I've had several of these. I had about 6 of them from 2011 to 2015. But since then, after going through all the testing, I kind of knew what to avoid. So not sure what happened, but got to the urgent care, got shot up. Feeling a little better now, but definitely will go lay down and relax after this. But I don't think you guys want to see my face all swollen and red right now. So I'm going incognito with some kind of image that JB has up. Anything on ownership stick out, change your mind? I think in my final notes I said Daniel Jones, if he's going to be 15%, I think I'll go elsewhere in that situation. Quarterback wise, was there anything that really stuck out to you besides that, or did that matter to you being 15%?
No, I think the numbers look bang on for, as good as you can project it, really. The quarterback's always a little bit more spread out. But for me, kind of like that with you, I think Daniel Jones will be someone that I'll use in a cash game. It's down between him and maybe Russ Wilson that I'm comparing against when I'm doing my 2v2s and 3v3s and looking at it. But I probably won't play him in tournaments. I'd rather go the other side, to be honest. I know Keenum was injured all week, but it's one of those situations where, last week everyone was on Winston. And it turned out, well, yes, his lineup still turned out good. Most people double stacked with Evans and somebody else, busted up their lineups that way. And everybody that had the Daniel Jones stacks went with Shepard and Ingram and then ran it back with Mike Evans. So they didn't get busted up and they made their way to the top of these GPPs. So I could see something like that this week again, but on the opposite. Everyone's on Daniel Jones, Shepard, Ingram. It's such a tight knit window. Don't want to stack them with Gallman, whatever. And then you could see Keenum and these guys on the other side between whether it's going to be McLaurin or Paul Richardson or Vernon Davis or Trey Quinn, who I kind of like as a cheap, flyer there at 3,000 stone minimum. I think that's another way to go for that. But I think all your ownerships look pretty bang on, Gup.
Yeah, I downgraded Eckler a little bit on ownership and points. I think if probably my biggest concern. Sorry, my biggest concern overall would be if Gordon vultures a touchdown, or maybe if he gets a goal line carry, similar to how Justin Jackson would. That would be my fear. From the sounds of it, doesn't sound like he's going to be limited, maybe 10, 15 snaps, but I definitely think it limits Eckler's ceiling to an extent. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I see what you did there, and I think, like you said, the good thing is to me is that his ownership is going to go down a little bit because people are scared because the Gordon news. I'm not really scared at all. I think, like you said, 10 to 15, even if they are higher quality, like he gets some goal line snaps, it doesn't mean he's going to get in. I think Eckler is far more usable than what people think. I think even when Gordon comes back, he's not going to be $8,000 value, but I'm just saying his price will drop in DK and whatnot and on DFS, and I think he's still going to get used quite a bit. Like, he's shown his ability. The guy can catch passes like crazy and take them places, so they can run them both out there. The Packers did that the other night before the scary injury there to Jamal Williams, where they, first drive of the game, all of a sudden Jones and Williams come rolling out. You can use two running backs, right? There's definitely setups for that. So I'm still on him this week. I'm going with the same Warren Buffett theme from the other night, right? Be greedy when others are fearful. I still think it's a good price. There's not a lot of good running backs on this slate. I shouldn't say it like that. I mean, in the higher price range, you kind of got McCaffrey, Eckler, and Cook are the guys up over 8K, and that's it. So, there's no receivers. They've done that now this year on DraftKings, where there's basically no receivers. It seems like going to be over 8K ever. They're just sticking to this game plan. And then the tight ends are priced down as well. So, in that 5 to 6K range, unless you're going up to Kelsey. So lots of room to fit him in, and I still like him there. And it's still the Dolphins, right? It only takes one or two plays, and he could bust the game wide open and be someone you need in cash and GPPs even.
Yeah, I agree. No real issues there. I do. If you hadn't read Final Thoughts, that kind of gets like all my personal adjustments that I've made since Wednesday, so I'm not going to regurgitate it. I think wide receiver wise, tough choice in MMEs is going to be Allen, because you're going to have to go 40-50% on him to get any leverage on the field, which could be worth it. Obviously, we saw their wide receivers are all banged up, but I don't know if that means they're going to roll the coverage over the top of them and make it tough for them, which could open up an Inman day. That's a tough one with me because I like him. He's still my number one rated wide receiver. I think he'll get loads of targets. Be interesting to see how people move around him and see if they can get him into their lineup. OBJ, to me, I still don't like him. I don't like the situation, but at 4.8% because of his ceiling, they could lose by 15, and he could still get 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, or something like that. As a leverage spot, especially at that price, that would set your lineup to be pretty contrarian starting out with him at wide receiver. Other than that, there's not a lot of just shocking development since Wednesday, other than the ones we just mentioned. TY, he's still in my rankings because I didn't have a for sure by then. Obviously, if he's out, Deion Kane is the guy that I hear and research and look at boards and all that kind of stuff, and how many snaps he got in the second half last week. It seems like he'll be the guy on the field. I don't know if that means he'll be the top performer with him out. Tight ends could be involved a little more, give a slight tick to Doyle or Ebron, whichever you want to go. That may be an adjustment for some. He may rely on those tight ends. Both of them could have decent days. I'll take Doyle for a little bit cheaper and just as much potential, but that's a crapshoot in itself. It's kind of like picking, a Bama wide receiver. Which one's going to go off? Which one's going to be dud? So we'll get straight into the questions, unless you have anything else to add to any of that, Tambo.
Just the point you just mentioned. I definitely like the tight ends more. I know you mentioned Kane earlier in the week. I like Kane, don't get me wrong. And the interesting part I thought when I was looking at your rankings was his value there, even with Hilton still in the rankings. So if Hilton, which I just looked it up on Twitter, he is doubtful. It hasn't been announced yet, but like we said, we're pretty much positive he's going to be out. You think that Kane would go up even more in your rankings, and at the same, he is a valuable guy. It's just, to me, that game looks a little bit more like a running game, right? Especially if Oakland wants to get Jacobs more involved in the pass game and get him banging on the other side. And then you've got Marlon Mack, who I know rates up quite high up your board, and he's a good play as well. I think I like some of the others around him more. Like I like Fournette as a GPP pivot, but I think the tight ends will be used quite a bit in that game, and the running backs more than the wide receivers.
I like Fournette. My deal with Kane will be, this is kind of big. I'll pay attention because I'll probably be on the couch the rest of the night, relaxing, taking drugs, just to try to hear the industry chatter. I'm not personally, outside of us, I don't know how many have really talked about Kane as the guy getting it. I think they went elsewhere. If he's going to be low on at 3,200, that's an easy return, and it gives you a lot of leverage everywhere else. That would be my reason for playing him.
Yeah. It takes one play at $3,200 and no one's going to be on him. That's just bad, especially if you got 20 plus lineups, right? So by 9 o'clock tomorrow, 10 o'clock tomorrow, it's target Kane. Kane's going to be Kane this, and that's a different story because then he's just a lock and load chalk play.
I'm going to go back to the questions now. McLaurin out for Washington. Is Richardson a good cheap value at wide receiver? I believe you liked him already Wednesday. I say yes. I think Richardson could be in play even with McLaurin in. Your thoughts?
I think both of them are in play, and I'm talking about Richardson and Quinn, and even Vernon Davis. I think all those guys are in play. I'm just not as high on McLaurin anymore because, like I said, I always get scared of a hamstring. That's not one where I'm being fearful. It's the obvious of you know is better than anyone that being out on the field before. If someone comes back with a hamstring injury, I've never seen that turn out too well. I think there's stats on guys that have been downgraded on Thursday or Friday practices, and it's not a huge sample size, but we're talking like 6-7 years or more of fantasy that people are saying they've been tracking this, and there's like a 30% decrease in overall fantasy points scored based off of that if they even play. So for guys that have been downgraded and then play, so there's some sites that have done studies on that. So I just don't like that. I don't know about Richardson. Like I know he's got a touchdown the last 2 weeks, but oh man, I don't know. I got a funny feeling this is a week for Adrian Peterson. He just keeps popping up everywhere, and I don't think he's going to be owned at all. You've got him here at 2.8%. I feel like they're just going to try and run that ball that whole game and do little short passes to like Vernon Davis and Trey Quinn. So I'm not nearly as high on Richardson as the industry is. That's just me.
Yeah, I wrote up Peterson, Gurley, and one more up there that's all under McCoy, projected at less than 5%. They would be fairly good if you're going to go chalky elsewhere. Say you go some Mahomes or Kelsey or Keenan Allen. You want to get Allen in and you plug a Peterson, a Kane, something like that. You get low dollars, low ownership, still great upside in this matchup. I do think Washington's going to try to establish the run. So I agree with all that there. I think Gurley at home it has huge upside. I do think I've upgraded Tampa Bay. I watched both the films on the Rams and the Bucks, all their games year to date. And I think I wish this game was in Tampa to feel stronger, but I think there's a potential for Winston to really do well against this D. I think the D's not really been tested. I don't think they win by any means. I do like them on the number plus 9.5. But I could upgrade Winston a little. And that kind of, if there's a good pace and they're having to score, Gurley could get some more action. So especially out of the backfield, I don't know if I'm going there at 7,000, but 3.2%, certainly in an MME build, it's worth a strong look. Do you have any thoughts on Gurley?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good GPP play just because of that. It's just I feel like that's going to be a passing game. I like what you said at the beginning about the shootout potential. I am actually with you. I came around on 2 game stacks, and that was one of them. And I think it's the possibility that, especially if Godwin's out, because Godwin was another one we forgot to mention that was missed practice or got downgraded or something that we're not sure on until tomorrow. I think is a game time decision. You could have Evans come back. Nobody likes to go back to the guy that just got 3 touchdowns, right? Oh, there's no way he can do that again. But this isn't like Howard getting 3 touchdowns for Philadelphia with a bunch of other running backs there and just a rare game setup that happens. This is Mike Evans. He can definitely get another touchdown or 2 in this game. O.J. Howard, we talked about as a cheap guy on Wednesday on the coin flip. I think he could come back the other way, and then you could just run out Goff with 2 of his receivers. So that's just a setup that I'm doing. I like that little game stack there. Not sure on Gurley, like I said, it'd be a potential there. But one guy you had to mention, Gup, that I wanted to add was the 4th guy on your list that's about 5%. He's 5.4%. He's 11th ranked overall, is Phillip Lindsay. I've come around quite a bit on him. So, guys were asking about some core plays. And he's not necessarily core. He's just outside of that. But I like using him in quite a few lineups with Royce Freeman being nicked up a little bit. And I don't know if he's going to be full go. It looks like he got back to it Friday. But, he hasn't been featured as much anyway. Lindsay's rush attempts have went up and up and up. I think it's 7, then 13, then 21. And his targets have been like 6, 7, 7. So 5,200 at 5% ownership at home against Jacksonville, and he correlates well in the past with his defense. I don't mind that little mini stack with Lindsey and Denver D as well. That's another running back there that's low ownership that I like.
Yeah, agree with all that. No concerns there. Do you think Baltimore's offense is through the air this week, or they stick to the ground game? I think the game script kind of dictates whether if the Browns, if Baker and those guys can compete and keep pressure I think they'll go to the air at least early. I mean, last I checked, all 3 or 4 of their DBs are still questionable, and it's really going to come down to what tomorrow they look like. Because I mean, if they're depleted in the secondary, I don't know why you wouldn't go after it if I was the Ravens.
Yeah, that's the other one I came around on. I said I came around on 2 game stacks. And I know I was way off of OBJ when we talked on Wednesday, but that's why we have this, to let the week go on. I'm not high on him, but I'm only going to use OBJ in a game stack. I'm not going to use him as a one-off, even though you described it very well. He could definitely be a good one-off because, like you said, he can get 2 touchdowns and then still lose 31-14, but he scored the 2 touchdowns. I'm just saying I actually feel like people aren't really looking into this enough, and they're just assuming Ingram on the ground. For Baltimore, they're just assuming maybe just Hollywood Brown to have a bounce back, but with potentially no Greedy Williams or Denzel Ward for Cleveland. And then on the other side, we know there's no Jimmy Smith, and Marlon Humphrey is a game time decision and possibly out for the Ravens. That'd be their 1-2 out. Like, there's no one in the secondaries, and everyone just assumes division game, hardcore battle. Like, I think it's more like that when they go to the dog pound in Cleveland. This is in Baltimore. I still think Baltimore gets this by 7. I'm not swerving away from that. I'm just saying, what if it's 31-24 or 31-27 because these guys both show up and we finally get the coming out party for Baker, but it's also Baker versus Lamar Jackson. That's a pretty high-flying matchup that I'm excited to watch. So as a fan of the Ravens, definitely, but just as a fantasy fan as well, I think it's going to be good. So I've come around quite a bit on that little game stack as well. That's certainly going to be in some of my lineups for MME.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the MME part. For bigger MME contest, I was wondering if winning lineup concentrated on, say, just 3 games, or do they spread them out over 6 games in constructing? I mean, if you're defining MME by, I'd say 20 plus lineup builds, I don't know. For me, it's more of constructing around the core. And depending on how many you're doing, 20 plus, 30 plus, 40 plus lineups, depends on how many games I want to get action on. I personally would try to limit my game exposure based on game scripts to think where I think I could A, gain leverage, or B, I think it's going to return a good game script in my favor. So I may have more teams than 3 as a game, but I don't game stack necessarily just because I have to. So I mean, I don't know the correct answer there. It definitely depends on how many lineups, but I'm a tighter core guy overall.
Yeah, I think that was OG's question, right? Mm-hmm. And I looked at it. I read it a little bit differently. I don't know what he was looking for exactly, but my thoughts were like, are the winning lineups building their lineups around 2 or 3 of the high scoring games? So, all the correlation plays and the secondary correlations and that sort of thing. And I definitely agree to a point that I do see that. Like, when I study lineups and I go back and see what the pros are doing and watch that stuff to see how they're building, you'll see a lot of, last week you'll see a Jones, Shepard, Ingram, Evans. Obviously, you had to have that to be up there. But then they might have had, I'm trying to think of some of the other games last week that were high scoring where they had a running back and a wide receiver opposite each other in that lineup as well that were in another high scoring game where they couldn't get all the pieces. So they're trying to keep the ceilings in their lineups as high as possible. I do the same when I build, because the only time really to add somebody outside is like what you mentioned earlier, Gup, with a Kane. I don't care if that game's high flying or not. It actually does have potential to get there. But even if it wasn't, it's a $3,200 guy. Like, if Hilton's out, nobody else is really there, then that's a spot where you've got value. Then yes, you can plug in a value player too. I just wouldn't litter your lineup with those value plays needing all these different values to hit. You still want to correlate and build stacks around the games that can go off. You want the maximum amount of points. You want a ceiling out. You need games that can have that happen. So only do some one-offs of some value plays if they're in random games like that. But I also noticed a trend in the past too, where I always like having the one-offs as guys with better quarterbacks. Like, if I don't do a Josh Allen lineup, but I'll still be okay with John Brown by himself because he can go off at any time. And I think Josh Allen can hit him. He's a good quarterback, good enough to get on the run, hit John Brown long, and make that happen versus somebody with a terrible quarterback like D.D. Westbrook with a Gardner Minshew. Not saying he sucks, just we have very limited sample size, and I don't trust him as much to hit a D.D. Westbrook. So I don't really want him as a one-off, even in this game against Denver or any spot. I'm just saying in general. Yeah,
no, I agree with that 100%. I'm considering Hillman for the Giants backup to Gallman. Have you guys checked out him? He ran a 4.440 squad. No, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Gallman's going to be the starter and get most of the. I mean, great that he's got good stats, but that we ain't seen it on the field. I don't think they're going to call a guy from practice squad and get him.
Right.
I mean, Gallman's already cheap enough. It's not like he's priced up this week per se. 4,600. There's no reason that's kind of my Gup's final thoughts of getting too cute. And I mean, that's a way deep flyer. If you're putting like 5 lineups in the Millie Maker or something, and you want to get way out there, sure, I guess. But if I'm going to go there, I just stick with Gallman.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say the exact same words. Getting too cute. If it gets there, good. I'm happy for you, but I don't even mess with that in 150 lineups. It's just no need.
Right. Ty out. Thoughts on Campbell? I already talked about that. I'd go Kane. Inman as my prime wide receiver value play in both cash and GPP. Am I missing red flags? No, I think he could do good in both. Certainly a good cash play, and depending on the talk between like Kane, him, and others, who's going to get the eye candy of the week award where everybody jumps on him. I'd pay attention. I think Kane's probably a little more chance to be higher than Inman because most people will go to Allen regardless. Yeah. And Ty was the number one there, so they're going to have to spread the ball around. But back to we kind of like the tight ends as well.
I like the tight ends, and then with Inman and Cash, I have a hard time with it only because like you probably already have Eckler and Allen, or at least one of them. I'm not trying to fill it up with 3 or 4 charges. I know it's against Miami, but it's like if one thing goes awry, then your whole cash lineup is subjected to a bad play now because of that. You've got more opportunity. You can only I would max out a 2 with Allen and Eckler. I probably wouldn't go with Inman and Cash.
Any concerns with Stafford? I don't. I think it's a typical.
Yeah.
Got to put him on the list. I don't think he's in any danger of missing the game. So I'm not out on him. You?
No.
I don't know if you're on him, but
yeah. I'm you mentioned me the night and I echoed it. He wasn't in one of my plays or my values, but I liked him as the same sort of the deal I talked about earlier, where a lot of people are on the Mahomes side, and just as easily that means if Mahomes is going to crush the correlation piece for a quarterback, the highest piece besides a wide receiver is the opposing quarterback. You just don't have Superflex on DraftKings or FanDuel really. FanDuel actually does offer it, I think, but you don't in a different style of game. But you have the ability to play 2 quarterbacks, so you can't get that correlation in a lineup without going to their receivers. So I don't mind going with the Stafford, Galladay, Hawkinson, and running it back with Sammy Watkins or something like that on the other side.
Right. That's all in the live pretty much. Some of them are repeats, so I kind of missed them. We do have quite a few people in the chat throwing stuff out there. Fuller, McLaurin, or one of the Colts wide receivers for value. I think Fuller. I got Fuller. I think he's going to be kind of high owned, so I would go. I probably would sound like a repeat record here, but I'd probably lean Kane. I don't mind Fuller because I have that game being kind of a higher scoring type game with the Panthers, but what I have him at? Yeah, I got him at 10%. He's in the top 25% of ownership at wide receivers. So I don't know. I think I lean Kane there. Your thoughts?
I'm on Fuller big time, especially if Jackson, who's the number 1 corner for Carolina, is possibly going to be ruled out tomorrow. I like Fuller for sure. He's cheap. He was going to be my McLaurin pivot before the McLaurin injury. I was going to use McLaurin in cash and then just fade him completely in GPPs because he would have been like 35% or something silly. So I do like Fuller there, and that's sort of one of those mini stack correlations I'm talking about. If you like McCaffrey, you can put McCaffrey on one side, Fuller on the other, skip the quarterbacks altogether if you want, and just run different stacks and use that as a secondary correlation. So I do like Fuller more than any of those guys at that price range, $4,500.
Washington stack for leverage on chalkier Giant stack. You could go the quarterback there. Obviously, we like Peterson. We like, you can go Quinn as a cheap guy, Richardson. I mean, there's a potential to game stack there if you choose. I do think it's going to be a little higher scoring game because these defenses are weak, but I wouldn't get too cute with it. I kind of mentioned that in the final thoughts.
Yeah, I hit on it earlier a little bit. I said that's one of those classic spots. I'm definitely going to have it in some just because they're so cheap, right? Keenum is so cheap and he has upside. So, he can get you 20 points and I think he's $4,900 or something. That's, 4X just on him. And then his receivers are so cheap, and Davis and Richardson and Quinn and all those guys that they can set off a lineup too. But like I said, I kind of feel like it's going to be a Peterson game, so it kind of worries me a little bit. But I'm definitely still going to run those guys on that side of the stack where everyone else is on the Jones side of the stack.
Yeah. Emmanuel Sanders, I talked about on Wednesday. Nothing's changed for me. I may even bumped him a little bit. I know that I think you kind of agreed on the good value play there.
Yeah, love it. Love that play. I love that as another mini correlation with him and my Fournette play. Right. Like I said, I think Fournette's in the game no matter what. I wrote him up in the Tambo's targets just to go of a pivot there off of Mac a little bit in GPPs or big fields. And I think he gets involved either way. Fournette does, right? On the if they're leading or behind, he still catches passes. And then if on the other side, leading or coming from behind, you need Sanders just as much. So I definitely like that as a mini stack there. And if Freeman is out, I already talked about my love for Lindsey. That just still probably leans more to Sanders checkdowns as well, too, right? They still need to get him involved to move the ball. And he gets end zone targets. So I love that play.
Arizona stack for leverage, run it back with Lockett. I mentioned I've upgraded them. I watched the film on that. I could definitely play an Arizona stack this week. I don't know. You could run it. You don't have to run it back with Lockett per se. There's a cut. Metcalf could work. Carson I've downgraded because it looks like Penny's going to play. I don't know. That's just a tough one to call there, and there's some better options around that price range. Any thoughts on the Arizona-Seattle game?
Yeah, another one where I like the Arizona side more than the Wilson side. I think, again, Wilson gets really popular, and you can run him with, I like him better with Lockett and Metcalf and even using Carson on its own than I do with the Disley chalk, right? I definitely am not interested in that. Maybe in cash. I don't even really know if I want it in cash, to be honest. It's just whatever. So I wrote up against that theory already, but I do like Arizona. I think it's, hasn't been talked about enough with Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald. Like, these guys are basically going to have the bonus opportunity every week on like 7 for 105 without a touchdown. That's still 20 points at $5,000 and 5,100 and 5,700. So until they increase their price, what if they both get a touchdown and all those catches and yards? Then you've got the Kyler side of that stack with those two guys, and you can run it back with Carson, because you could say that Seattle pounded the ball on him and got 2 touchdowns early from running it, and then it came back with all the Arizona guys. Or you could run it back with Lockett and say that Arizona just gets lucky and gets out ahead early and doesn't look back. And then, when Russell gets going, he's going to chuck it to Lockett. So you can use Metcalf, you can use Disley. I like Lockett and Carson on the opposite side of Kyler, Fitz, and Christian Kirk.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna pay attention to kind of the Penny Carson. I don't know how much Penny will hurt him. Carson's got to hang on to the ball. Because if he fumbles again or something, I can see him short leash and just putting Penny in there. I know that Pete Carroll. I know that Pete likes him as the running back, but he's got to hang on to the ball. Let's see in the YouTube chat. All this value coming up is really annoying. I had a solid cash line I was happy with. That's not a question.
To comment on that, you're building your lineups too early. Not saying it rudely, just said that you can't do that in NFL. You can't say I had a good cash lineup on Wednesday. Well, there's Thursday, there's Friday, there's Saturday, there's days to go. My cash lineup gets finalized like Saturday night at like 11 p.m. and it's not finalized. That's like, okay, I'm good, assuming, and then I've got what if scenarios for the morning, because what if TY plays all of a sudden last minute, right? What if McLaurin's out last minute? Like you can't. There's too many factors that go into building cash lineups, especially. Or you can call it single or 3 max or whatever you want to use it for, hybrid, anything. It's just tough to build them that early. There's not too many lineups that you can build early in the week that end up hanging on.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of, and I preach it, especially during golf, but most people seem to ignore it, which is fine. They can if they want. Talking about, no matter what sport it is, guys have this, what do you want to call it, premature ejaculation to get up there and get their fucking lineup in 3 days early, or Monday night they want to have their golf lineup built. And I'm like, I don't do it. And I talk about it even in the process because I think it puts a bias in your ongoing research because you've already locked in guys and thought those were the plays. And I literally never build a lineup until late Wednesday night for golf. I don't build one lineup at all ever. except for my reserve dummy one, just in case something happens. And then I don't even build it. I just click 6 guys and save it. And same with football. I may build one. I'll probably build. I mean, I only normally do 3 to 5 in a week, but I'll have most of it built tonight. And then, wake up and make some adjustments if I have to. Listen, it's all the morning stuff. But I see the Slack all week long, and people are just building and building, Wednesday, Thursday. And I'm like, I think it puts your mind, unless you're in. But if you're in, you do it that way. Don't come back to it. Just move on. Like Bucks builds pretty early in his lineup researches, but he never tinkers, and he's disciplined. Unless there's an injury or something major, like he's done. But if you're going to build one and then you have to build more, I think you're going to have a bias and you don't even realize you do it while you're building out the rest of them because you've already locked into these guys before you had all the information.
Yeah, I find it. I actually don't like to build my golf ones till Wednesday night, but on something like Millie Maker 150 lineups, I'll start building them a little bit earlier in the week because it's individual sport and there's not going to be an injury report and a bunch of stuff to change me out. Like I can get after building some of them earlier by hand, right? But in football, even if you say, okay, this stack is not going to change, I know that Kyler, Fitz, Kirk, and Lockett are going to be in that game. There's no way this can get messed up. Well, there's still going to be better values pop up at certain running back positions or tight end positions or ownership plays, and you don't know where the ownership's at yet or anything. So there's way more factors with football. And I agree with you on golf. I'm just saying, and I like that style. I just think in football it's even more important because there's literally news that can come out half an hour before the games kick off in the morning that change the whole slate. Rex Burkhead was a good example last week, right? The James White last second, and now all of a sudden Rex Burkhead's a play. Not everyone got there in time, and there was so many lineups that didn't have him. And it's not like he was needed. He didn't break the slate, but I'm just saying that was pretty slate changing, at least in cash games. Most of the best cash games had Rex Burkhead in it.
Yeah, and there's another guy that I think's kind of hurt this week, but I think he's going to play. I know he made the trip, speaking of Rex, but I can see that. I guess my point to most people would just be stick to whatever process you have. So if you are building a little bit early and you're going to move around like that, that's fine, but just don't get off of what you've done late and then you start screwing around and you kind of lose your whole process. Make sure you kind of keep your process consistent week to week. Sometimes things change and get out of whack, but I just don't like it, but I don't have to build 100 or 50 or 100 lineups. I am thinking about doing quite a few in the super draft tomorrow on that the $20 one. I hadn't checked the overlay recently, but even if there's not much, I'm going to check it out because I kind of like the format.
Man, that site is fun. I was just going to say, if anyone is not on that yet, it's not just for the promo. Like, honestly, I got, I think, 10 in there now. And I started thinking I'm just going to put like 3 or 4 and move it up. And I just keep adding them. But right now, Gup, it's at 1,500 on 7,350. And there's $20,000 to first. And it's a decent payout structure, right? It's not bad at all. It's 125K pool guaranteed with 20 to first. So, yeah, I got a bunch of cool lineups on there because obviously it's a lot more fun with the multipliers. You just get to mix it up and see how that looks. And then I know D-Rock put out a pretty cool tool there and some article write-ups, and you got your rankings out, everything like that. So if anyone's not on there yet, go to Superdraft, use the promo code GUP. It's a wicked site. I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it'd be definitely great if you struggle to, you want after one of those top prizes, but you can't. You're just so under leveraged in a, call it a Millie Maker or, even some of the other ones that are 50,000, 100,000 entries. Even if you only put 10 in here, there's only 7,000, which I hadn't filled yet. So your odds are definitely better than throwing $10, $20 lineups in the Millie in the DraftKings where there's 250,000 or something like that lineups.
Oh yeah, 280,000. Last week this tournament only got 4,200 people out of the 7,500. Yeah. So I mean it's awesome. Yeah, it's crazy.
Better game for Henry or Freeman this week?
Is he talking Derrick Henry?
Yes, Derrick Henry.
It has to be Henry for me because we don't even know what Freeman's doing yet, right? For sure. Or is he talking Devontae Freeman? I think actually.
Devontae.
Yeah, sorry, makes more sense. I was like Royce Freeman. Yeah, no. That's actually a good one. That's pretty close. I would say probably. I don't know. Probably Freeman. They've been showing get him the ball a little bit more, and I don't know. It's so close though. But the only thing I worry about is with Atlanta, it's easier to attack them through the air right now, right? With Neal getting the sad story with the ACL and now the Achilles this year out for another season. That's they're wide open across that middle there and to go with it. So I'm not sure you don't see, Henry in the passing game as much. Now, if he does take one, he catch one. We've seen him take it for like 80 yards to the house. So definitely some upside there, but I like Freeman 1v1 over the two of them.
Correct. And I'm on the Titans this week in my super contest in Vegas, and I probably will be on them in the Super 7. So I like the spot there. What about the Bills D? They're a home D, but obviously you'd have to rely upon the turnovers or something. Brady just doesn't turn over a whole heck of a lot. I like the Bills this week at +7, but I don't know if I'm going to go there to play them.
Yeah, I liked them more on the pod on Wednesday. Probably, just looking at it, probably coming off them just because, like what you said, with Brady not turning it over as much. I like them because they're 2,600 and people underestimate how good they are and the obvious facts. But now with Edelman going to be back, it looks like Burkhead will play. Like it really does look like they'll have, James White's there for sure, coming off with the nappy factor, just having the baby there. So maybe he has some baby swag. I don't know. That looks like too many short passes for things to really go wrong and ability for them just to dice them up a little bit. So it worries me a little bit more as the week goes on here. I don't know how much they'll make my pool. They'll be in there something because I really spread it out over, 100 lineups. I spread out my defenses quite a bit because it's so impossible to predict which one's actually going to go off. I will say, well, we're talking defense, just on that note, and I'll flip it to you what you're doing with them, but I'm probably not going to be as high on the Chargers as what, it feels like you got them at the highest owned. I don't really like that. I don't like them at the highest owned. I know that it's Miami. I know that teams have crushed against them, but I'll cap that probably at like 10% of my lineups, and that's it. And I'll probably do it with something like Eckler, where I use that correlation piece to say that maybe Eckler scores a couple touchdowns and then the D does the work the rest of the game. But I'm not going to be very high on them. What about you?
No, I'm not. I like the Rams only because of potential turnovers.
Yep.
I think that game, they could give up some points to the Bucks and still, get there. Panthers, same way. Sacks, potential fumbles. Houston's O-line's terrible. So, there's some spots there. I'm probably going to pick one or two and just lock them and roll with it. Redskins, we always got a rookie quarterback that could have that bad game. They're cheap. Someone like that. I don't know. Bills is they're fourth to the bottom for me in my rankings, so I'm not really. I can't play them at all. They're not going to be in my pool at all. Higher on Stafford or Brissett. I'm higher on Brissett overall. I know Stafford's potential injury, but like I said earlier, I just think that's probably a typical Friday update. I think Brissett can have a good week. You got to factor that Oakland pushes them a little bit and keeps it competitive, because if they don't, they're going to run the ball a lot. We know that historically with the coach. Stafford probably, I'm going to assume, I know I had him pretty high owned earlier, just because that game is going to get a lot of attention. So he's 7.4%, and Brissett's 2%. So that's probably would be the tiebreaker for me. What about you?
I still like Stafford more. I like that game more, right? That's really what it comes down to. And I also, like I said, I love the fact that, yes, he is 7%. He's half the percentage of, pretty much half the percentage of Mahomes in what it looks like out there, and even in yours as well, in ownership projections. So I look at it more like when people have that game, how can you leverage that game if you know everyone's on Mahomes and Watkins and Kelsey and Golladay? Well, the best way to leverage it then is to flip over to the other side and then mix it up elsewhere. So I like Stafford still more. I'm just not sold fully on Brissett. I do think he's better, and I think that team is better. You called it early in the season. I agree that team is much better than people gave him a chance at. But I don't know. It's so hard to pick who he's going to use, right? We talked about Kane, our love for him. So you got to just do what Gup says, take your stand and pick the guys you like. But you've got Mack, you've got Kane, you've got Ebron, you've got Doyle, like all these other receivers that are known, like this, never get into your pools. So it's so hard to mix it up versus Stafford. I can just go with the tried, tested, and true, and Golladay, Jones, and Hawkinson and carry on. You know what I mean? It's like a 4-man set of good plays that all can get off on their own. So I like that side a lot more.
A couple more questions here. We've been on about 40 minutes, so we're going to roll it up so we can go enjoy our Saturday. Well, I'm not going to enjoy it very much. I'm going to go sleep, but or watch the games. Marquise Brown, I don't have any issues with him. You're the Ravens guy. Any insight there?
Love it. Yeah, his snaps have gone up. His practice regimen has gone up. The propensity to use them. The fact that secondary, like I said, is looking like it's going to be really banged up in a home game. I don't know how popular he gets. I think you've got him here just under 10. But these 10% guys are okay. Like there's a lot of them, and they're that for a reason. Like the Kirks, the Will Fullers. That it's the guys like you see 30% Keenan Allen. Like that has a high bust rate because and not that I don't like him. I mean he's a staple in cash for me, but it's that you could see that bust rate because with him, what if the game plan is just shut down by half? What if they're already up like 21-0? They don't need to pass to him 17 times or 16 times. And now you've got him 30% on. Plus there's Inman there. Plus there's Eckler. What if Gordon steals some of those goal lines we talked about? There's just so many options there that has a way higher chance. At 10%, I'm totally fine with these guys that you've got marked in here, right? The Cups, all that. They're just good plays. The Julios, these guys are good plays, and 10 is 9 out of 10 lineups don't have them. So I like those a lot more than something like a Keenan Allen or maybe a Cooper Kupp I just mentioned. I thought he was 10. That was actually Julio. Yeah, Kupp is another one, right? He's 17.8%, and you've got Woods and Cooks, let alone Higbee's back and practicing, so he's going to be there. Everett, the Gurley play we talked about, all these spots. So yeah, I'm fading most of the the high ownership wide receiver chalk.
Yeah, I pretty much in alignment there. There may be one or two you can spin off depending on how you're building on the wide receiver side.
Yeah.
But
game stacks, I should say, not to pay off, but just to clarify that when you see that I still have got 10 or 15% Keenan Allen, it would be in a game stack, but it won't be because I'm not really stacking that game this week. So you won't see much of Keenan Allen in my lineups at all, but for GPPs or big MME builds. But a guy like Kupp will only really get used most likely as a one-off in a flex spot or something that's unique and different, or instead of picking a running back at that price, or in game stacks. That's the only two ways I'll probably use them.
Correct. No issue. My thing. Okay, here we go. Do you ever use 1X guy in super draft? Can't really. I mean, I'm only week 2 into using it, so I can't really talk too much strategy there. Certainly, it'd be like playing a higher price guy in DK per se. So there's obviously a Mahomes type situation where it still equals value. Hopefully they keep growing. We keep growing with them and allows us to have some more in-depth analysis on it. But we're very raw into the database to see what works.
Just a quick note on that. Three weeks in, I have analyzed it because I played it every week, and it looks like so far every single week the winning lineup had one guy that was 1.15 or less. So all of the others, then I'm talking it goes up like 1.4 or more. So it's like you can get away with one, it looks like, but you need these multipliers. That's the whole point why they're there, right? You got to figure that out and work backwards. If it's your last spot and you can plug into your flex, a Christian McCaffrey or something, and you just think he's going to have a 35-point game, well, then if he's your highest projected guy, then it doesn't really, you got to find a 2.0 that gets the points to add up to that. So why take the risk, right? Some people are just going with it that way. I have seen that so far, but not more than one.
Yeah, and they don't have a defense. That's kind of the only difference lineup wise from DraftKings, if I'm correct there.
Yep.
So I will have a lineup builder out for that tonight for the main slate. Just gonna rest for a second. I'll build it. Shouldn't take too long. I built the mainframe for the Thursday night one, so it shouldn't take too long. I'll get it out for those that want to enter 10, 20, all the way up to 150 lineups. You can build on it. Could we see a feature game for Diggs? If the Bears shut down Cook, I don't think Cook has anything to do with Diggs being a feature, but yeah, he's always set to do. I mean, he can go off and have a, CD Lamb type game today, or Smith. I mean, he can get his in bunches. Thielen would probably be my favorite there because of the Bears are going to rush quick and you got to hit quick passes. He's got good hands, relies upon them, but Diggs can run the quick crossing routes as well. They can get him the ball. So I don't mind either one of them. I don't have a favorite, but he can certainly be, have a breakout game at any point.
Yeah, I don't mind Diggs. I use him as a guy, as a one-off, but not like super high on him or anything because their prices are, but he's cheaper than Thielen. So I do like him for that reason, but that's about it. I'd play him over Thielen personally, but that's not going to be something I'm big on this week. I'm not taking a stand there or anything.
So any final thoughts for you before we wrap it up? Go spend some family time. I'll be in the Slack later on. I'm sure you'll be in there later in the morning at times. Anything else we left out or anything final for you?
No, I think it was a good show. I think, this is what more we were looking for, guys. So if you keep using the live chat questions, put the questions in there. We love getting to as many as we can. This is the best format for us because of, busy. If your life's busy or things going on or whatever your plans may be for the weekend, pop them in there and then we'll do the same, right? We've got stuff going on and we can get to them when we get on here Saturday nights, and you can listen back to this plenty of time throughout this evening or tomorrow morning or whatever suits best for your schedule. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't have much to add on to that. If you didn't read my article yet, final thoughts, that kind of sums up all my detailed-ish opinions opposed to this. We will see you guys later on. For me, I will see you Monday night on the Smash Factor with Jeff. JB behind the mic as always. Thanks, JB. And Tambo, you will see next Wednesday night for the E9. He has his pod Monday with Kenny Kim. You guys have a good night. We'll see you in the Slack later on.